what are those few best practices of user experience / user design that work in Japan, but like you said, may not be popular in other countries?
So when I land on your website, I need to see everything. I need to see the price. I need to see any charges that will be included. You need to write it upfront. Also, how you will handle their information. So privacy policy, like if you want to look at, this is something very important. If you ask salespeople, what do you think should we improve in the website? They will say something different than designers and marketer. But if you look at the user behavior, this will let us know what we should prioritize, what we should fix. Localization is not just translating your website to Japanese, because you can have perfect Japanese, but no one cares about it. See the style, the design that will work in Japan. Look at competitors. Look into the customer behavior. Also building trust, because Japanese love to hear positive feedback about your service.
Welcome to the first episode of CRO Wizards Season 2 by VWO Podcast. With hours of in-depth conversations, we talk about using CRO to deliver what your users want, while also driving long-term growth for your business. Before we speak to our guest, here's a very quick overview of what we do. VWO is a leading experience optimization platform that enables you to gather in-depth user insights and build winning experiences across your website and mobile app. VWO Copilot, our AI champion, handles the heavy lifting of suggesting test ideas, creating variations, and finding insights, so you can focus on making strategic decisions that drive growth. Now, without further delay, let's jump right back to this conversation.
In today's episode, we have Umniah Adel, a global marketing strategist with over a decade of experience in international marketing and digital strategy. As media manager at TableCheck, she's shaping the brand story and driving innovative solutions that transform the hospitality industry. Previously at byFood, she led global marketing efforts, executing high-profile collaborations with airlines, banks, and major media partners to elevate the brand's visibility. She was involved in optimizing diverse channels to drive measurable growth by prioritizing A/B testing and continuous experimentation. With 8 years of marketing experience in the Japanese market, Umniah has also held key roles at Rakuten and Rentracks, where she scaled affiliate and influencer programs, launched data-driven campaigns, and built strong industry partnerships. Please join us as we dive into data-backed growth strategies, global marketing insights, and of course, the power of experimentation. Hi, Umniah. Welcome to CRO Visit Season 2 by VWO. Thank you for taking your time.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are we doing today, Umniah?
I'm doing well. It's pretty cold in Tokyo, but yeah, everything is okay.
Absolutely. Sounds good, Umniah. Umniah, I'm sure you're aware of the format. We will ask you a few questions related to experimentation, CRO, and I have a surprise round waiting for you at the end. I hope you like that too.
Okay.
Before we get into the podcast as such, this is a question that I've gathered very interesting answers out of this, but would love to hear from you. What is it something something exciting that you're working on right now, professional or personal, either ways, but would love to hear on that there.
Okay, something exciting. So right now I'm working at TableCheck, as you mentioned. So they are a restaurant tech company, and now they are having this new project to target B2C. So basically, we want to target people coming to Japan to make easy reservation for restaurants here. It's really exciting because you are targeting so many people from different backgrounds, so many countries. I don't know if you know about that, but Japan is hosting or like welcoming around 3 million visitors every month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is crazy. So there is big opportunity for targeting inbound coming to Japan. We have been working on this for a while now, and we just launched the website. So there is a lot to do. It's so exciting.
Lovely. How's the launch been? How's it going so far, Umniah?
Well, we did only soft launch because we are still
Okay.
working on the language, because like when you target Japanese, everything will be in Japanese, right? But then translating everything and making sure that it's good translation for Western countries takes a lot of time. Also
Mhm.
the page optimization, the search results, etc., etc. So we have been working on improving the product right now, and at the same time, from my side, I'm working on the marketing strategy, what we will do, how we'll do advertising. So it's really exciting.
No, absolutely. I hear you on the, Japan being a whole micro market in itself and a major market in itself. I work with a lot of partners in Japan, and language and even culture as a whole, can be a major difference as compared to Western countries. And glad to hear that you're working on something which folks like me, when we end up in Japan and Tokyo, we would love to be a part of the ecosystem that you're trying to build, Umnia.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I really love is I love working with Japanese restaurants because the hospitality here is amazing. And when you go to local small Japanese restaurant that is not well known or hyped on the internet,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
see how they are trying to understand you if you don't speak Japanese, explain the menu items. They try their best to really help you to enjoy the meal. You feel like, okay, I want to help these people to like get more and more clients, especially from overseas. So what I want to do on my own now is helping restaurants in Japan to get seen from travelers coming from abroad. Yeah, so like it's really exciting and interesting to work in this industry.
No, no, absolutely. Especially when the focus of your industry is people, at the end of the day, it's people on both sides. It's people on your supply side and people on your demand side as well. And bridging one culture with multiple cultures, like people from all across the world coming, but there's this, very strong Japanese culture. And as you said, they're very welcoming to people. They hone their craft, they hone their art, especially when it comes to food. I've been experimenting with fermentation a bit. So your miso and your tempeh and your koji, all of those Japanese ferments is something that I hope one day I can turn up at Japan, and maybe you have this feature where I can book a class at a restaurant. Maybe I don't know, but that would be something really interesting, Umnia.
Yeah, that's what we are working on right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Umnia. I mean, it's almost a beautiful service that you're offering. And hospitality industry can get very old school at times. So constant innovation and constant push really helps breaks these cultural boundaries across multiple countries.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Umnia, for that. Excited to see that coming through. I will now dive into everything CRO experimentation and what you as an individual have been doing across your past few companies. So one thing, since you touched upon the fact that hospitality industry receives people from many different cultures, and it's Japan who's at the center of it. So how do you see customer behavior changing in the hospitality industry when it comes to Japan? And what are you doing to stay on the top of your end customers' needs?
Okay, this is an interesting question. So, when I look at hospitality, as I mentioned, you can target Japanese audience or diners and international or
Mhm.
expats, right? So, when I
Correct.
came to Japan 8 years ago, I really loved hospitality here. They look into small details, like when you take off your slippers and enter a place because you have to take off your shoes,
Hmm.
you will
Hmm.
position it in a way when you finish and come out, it will be easy for you to wear it. So even if you put it in a wrong way or whatever way, they will
Hmm.
position it in a right way for you. So when you come out, everything is ready for you to like just wear your shoes and go your way. But if I talk about marketing in hospitality, this is a different story. So hospitality is amazing, but in the past, when I arrived to Japan, if let's say a restaurant open in your area, how they will advertise this
Hmm.
restaurant? They will just give you paper, hand you paper when you are walking in the
Papers.
street, or they will put some, will give you pocket tissue
Okay. Okay.
with
Interesting.
no advertising inside, or they will put
Oh.
your box. It was very traditional, and I was making fun of it because you know how people think about how advanced Japan is.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, then when I arrived, I had this culture shock that marketing fell. done in traditional ways, not in advanced ways. But
Hmm. Advanced
speaking
ways.
about that, now it completely changed. So people started to use technology and use websites for promotion. So I can see some advertising from restaurants around my area using location targeted ads, for example. This is something I
Wow.
haven't seen when I moved to Japan. It was like impossible to see any kind of big advertising except for TV or
T-
radio or paper or like word of
Papering. Hmm.
mouth. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it definitely changed a lot now, and I see a lot of new experiments, new type of advertisements to adapt different needs from diner side. What I do on my side, since I started working on this industry, I prioritize data. So I don't just make decisions based on like I feel this can be good for this
Hmm.
target audience. Especially I'm
Hmm.
targeting people who are not me. I'm not the right target audience. Even if I dine
Absolutely.
in restaurants, but I'm not the only one who goes out to dine. I'm talking to
Correct.
Japanese, I'm talking to non-Japanese. So the way you advertise to Japanese will be completely different than Western. Let's say if you look at landing page, they want to have a lot of information, everything up front. They don't want to keep clicking and going to different pages to find the information. They want to know, let's say someone wants to book a restaurant. They want to know how much is it. They want to see the reviews because reviews are very important in Japan. If
Yeah.
restaurant doesn't have good reviews or reviews are very, the rating is very low, people will not go. They will ask their friends, they will check on the internet, they really make sure that this place is good because they don't want to feel disappointed. So putting this up front and allergy information, what
Mm.
pay for their seats or not, because in Japan you sometimes you have to pay for the seat charge.
Okay.
You want to see
Okay.
this
Wow.
kind of information upfront. So when you create a landing page for Japanese audience, you need to keep this in mind. Have everything upfront. What kind of design will work with Japanese will be completely different than Western. So Western will focus on minimal design, something, especially if you're advertising a luxury,
Hmm.
fancy, you will have minimal font, luxury style.
Yeah. Yeah.
Japan, if you talk to Japanese, it's not necessarily gonna be the same way. Even if
Hmm.
it's a fancy restaurant, sometimes you don't use this fancy font and like white background. Maybe they use a lot of text, even though it's expensive. So keeping this in mind, who you are targeting, what's their behavior, what are their expectations, are very important when I do advertising in hospitality.
Lovely to hear that, yeah, because like I said, I've been speaking to a few partners as well, and they also say that, and advertising platforms can also be different in Japan. Correct me if I'm wrong, Umnia, that there are, Google is not the only place where you place your ads. What are the other ad platforms that you typically go for?
Well, Google is, you mean search or display can be Google for Western, but for Japanese, they use a lot of apps and use Yahoo. Yahoo is still big thing here in
Uh-huh.
Japan, so you
Still
can
big thing.
Yahoo
Mhm.
ads. You can do ads on Line, the application, chat application.
Yes,
It's big
yes,
thing in Japan.
yes.
Everyone is using Line. If you want to be successful in your business, you must use Line
You
advertising.
must use line. Correct, correct, correct. No, great to hear that. And the shoes idea that you gave me is so beautiful. Like I can imagine if I am getting out of a restaurant, if I find my shoes placed just like that, it's like a beautiful end to the experience that, okay, they're sort of guiding me home in a very beautiful way. So that's very lovely to hear. And about the minimal design as well, I totally get you. It's a lot to do with the Western culture, but if you look at Asian culture, right, starting from India all the way till China, those smaller details, those colors, those palettes, all of them are very important in portraying what that business is trying to tell you about.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Unya. And since you mentioned, data and that you're going for data-backed decisions, and this is one bias that in the field of experimentation we try to cut out. That okay, hey, yes, you may have 10 years of experience and you may know the field, but you have to try your best to stay away from that bias, and that's when data comes into play. And in data, my next question it would be that what are the metrics that one business should be tracking while driving for business growth? in Japan and overall, but what are the metrics that are important to be tracked?
Okay, for the hospitality industry,
Mhm.
the main metrics we measure are reservation conversion rate, how many users landed on this landing page or the website, and how many of them actually completed the reservation. Another important metric can be customer lifetime value. So, how much the customer spend in the entire year and how much they spend per visit. This can help to maximize spending value. So instead of you will analyze how much they spend on stuff. Let's say they really like sake, Japanese sake. So next time when they come, we can the restaurant can recommend more expensive sake if they are spending a lot on alcohol. Another important metric is no-show rates and cancellation. So this can help restaurants to implement prepayment option or like down payment option,
Mhm.
so they don't cancel last minute, and it's a big loss for restaurants. Also reminders, if even there is no cancellation fee, you can send reminder, hey, you have this reservation tomorrow. Are you ready for your dinner? Another metric to look at is the guest satisfaction, and this is one of the important metrics, how people speak or talk about you on the internet. So you need to look not just the reviews on Google or on your website, but your brand mention on the internet, how people talk about you, word of mouth, what's your brand positioning in the market, like how people keep talking about you. This will help you a lot to improve your service, make it better, make these customers come back.
Absolutely. And a lot of the metrics that you said can be, used across industries, which is how many people are landing up on your page, what is the business goal that you're trying to accomplish, how many people are completing that business goal, what is the lifetime value. These are definitely top metrics. One thing very interesting you mentioned is recommendation based on previous, let's say, purchase or visit. How do you do that currently? What's your approach to that?
Okay, so my current company is restaurant reservation company. So it's
Hmm.
SaaS company, right? So if the restaurant have this TMS, table management system, installed to their system, so they can analyze how much the user or the diner is spending on items, different items, and we have built in analytics, so they can see like, okay, this person is visiting once a month, at least once a month. And every time they come, they order the same dish. So this can help you
Hmm.
next time when they come, when they enter the place, you can just greet them and say, hey, we have, let's say, this fresh oyster if they love oyster. Or if they spend a lot on wine, then they will recommend, hey, we have this new bottle of wine. Would you like to try it? So they feel like, okay, you know me, you know what I like.
You know
They
me.
feel very special,
Yes.
and they feel it's very personalized service, but at the same time it's not that difficult because everything is already registered in one system. So if you have a system to record all how your diner is spending their money, what's their habits, spending habits, and also their special occasions. Let's say when you ask them to register, you ask them for their birthday, then you remind them, hey, like, happy birthday, would like to offer you this special thing if you come for your birthday celebration, etc. They will feel special and you'll get more money. You'll get more repeat visits.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's something that I really, as someone who eats out in these places quite often, it will be very heartwarming when someone comes up and tells me already what I like. That's a very top-notch experience that I would love to be a part of. Um, and leading on to that, you mentioned that websites are being used in the Japanese market a lot, which earlier wasn't the case. So when you talk about a website, you can break it up into different pieces, like you said. People don't like scrolling much below in Japan. So what are the areas of a website that one needs to improve or prioritize so that they can achieve the right business goals?
What I would say, this needs a lot of analysis because if you ask let's say, salespeople, what do you think should we improve in the website? They will say something different than designers and marketer. But if you look at
Absolutely.
the user behavior, so like we use heat maps, we use Google Analytics for like numbers. So seeing the numbers of people landing on a certain page, or how what's their behavior throughout their journey, this will let us know what we should prioritize, what we should fix. One example I saw before is I created this campaign, seasonal campaign, because Japan is very seasonal. So people come here and expecting
Hmm.
seasonal stuff like sakura themed stuff. For summers, you have summer food. If you come in autumn, you will eat something completely different. So I created this
Oh.
landing page for some sakura related stuff. Then, when the
Hmm.
user landed on the page, they saw the head banner and they were clicking on it. So they were expecting some action to happen when they click on this banner. And we saw this pattern repeated a lot using heat maps. So, and session recording. So, this helped me to, okay, maybe they are expecting some kind of action. How about we experiment and give them an action and see they will be satisfied and convert or not? Maybe they will be expecting to jump on the recommendations, etc., etc. So like this kind of things are very essential to make any decision in terms of the website layout, landing page optimization, not just to like what I think, but what the user wants.
No, I mean, very well said, and so glad to hear the words because see, I belong to the partnership function within VWO, and when this comes from a client that okay, I'm not going to listen to my bias, and I am going to prioritize only basis the data which comes in, and you have given a very beautiful example for that. You saw dead clicks happening on a particular thing, and you saw that okay, that's an area of a website that needs improvisation. So using heat maps, using GA4, that's a more foolproof method than you said. And definitely you trust your instincts, but instincts along with data is always the best way to go about it than just to trust your instincts.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing we always keep in mind, and in Japan they always follow, is surveys. Whatever
Okay,
service you
okay.
in Japan, they have a survey for it. They really want to hear from customers. So you will always, like, if you just go to a place one time, you will receive a survey like through a line app, or they even have paper surveys. They send it. Even my city, I live in this city in Tokyo. They send me a survey if I'm happy with the service of the city. So surveys are really important, and they make it very short and straight to the point, so they can get to hear from you, improve their service without taking a lot of your time.
No, that's really good because otherwise, when I hear survey, I'm like, okay, 10 questions, and I may not want to fill it. But what you're saying is that they're capturing it at the right moment and with the right set of questions so that they actually get the responses. Because the biggest challenge with survey is getting the responses, and unless you have a decent set, you cannot make sense out of the survey data that has come in as well.
Yeah, they always give you small thing as well if you do the
Lovely.
survey, like a small omiyage gift for you.
Oh, wow. That's even beautiful. I mean, incentivizing your end customers with, so that means that's how much importance they place on feedback, that they are
Yeah,
ready to incentivize the end customer just to get the feedback from them.
yeah, exactly.
And you also mentioned something very interesting where you said that, depending upon who is part of the website from the supply side, the what they want improved will change. Like you said, if you ask a salesperson, they would want more reservations. If you ask a marketing person, they would want more branding. So how do you balance this out, basis the multiple stakeholders that you have to cater to internally? How do you work that out when delivering the end website?
Well, personally, I must align with business goals. So if the
Mhm.
business wants to get loyal customers, then we focus on loyalty features. If we want more traffic and bookings, then we focus on acquisition and SEO, etc. So I always talk to the leadership, see what is the business goal, where we are, where we want to go, and based on that, we prioritize what we want to do on the website or market any marketing related objectives.
Lovely. I mean, steer clear of the stakeholder, but keep the eye on the business goal and accordingly run the website. That's the most efficient way to go, because otherwise, a lot of people relationships can come into place, and you don't want that to mess with the ultimate goal of achieving that business goal.
Well, there are always a lot of ideas and a lot of new things that
I'm
we
sure.
would like to try. Like everyone want to try and a lot of new things, but if
Correct.
you try everything at once, it will be big fail. So we need to
Yeah.
prioritize also to manage the resources you have in your team. Like you don't have huge tech teams that will be dedicated to add all these features and doing
Correct.
experiments. So you need to really understand what are your priorities before you do any kind of changes.
Absolutely. And when you said everything, it just took me back to that movie. If you've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once, it just, whenever someone tells me this, it takes me back to that movie instantly. And yeah, if it is not right, it can be a very daunting one. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm finding this conversation lovely, Umnia, because your previous answer is sort of leading me on to my next question. You spoke about heat maps, you spoke about GA4. GA4 is quantitative, heat maps is qualitative. So, how do you use these tools to research your user behavior? And is there any other framework, like we know of the ICE framework, or any other tool that you use to understand your user behavior better?
So if I say in Japan in general, they actually, I wouldn't say they use a lot of tools, even there are
Okay.
many tools available, but they don't use a lot of tools. But personally, what I do is I look at the data, numbers, and trends to decide, like, okay, there is some kind of demand, let's say, on something. Then interview people, ask them, like, because when you see numbers, it will not tell you why there is this kind of
Hmm.
trend. So you
Hmm.
can see some spike or some trend, some demand, but then when you talk to customers, you will understand why there is a demand. I will give you an example.
Yeah.
So in Japan, there is a famous district called Gion in Kyoto. So this is
Okay.
where you can see all the geisha. Last year,
Hmm.
there was a news that this district will close for tourists, so they cannot really go through this district. So it
Wow.
was really big thing, and everyone started to search and book any geisha related experience because you wanted to see
Hmm.
geisha before they close this district.
Closes.
So when you see numbers, like everyone is searching for geisha, like there is big demand, everyone is like trying to book. But if you don't really talk to people why they are trying to book geisha, you will not understand what is behind this trend, what's behind this action. So I would say I will not only look at numbers, but I need to look at why. What is the reason there is some trend going on? There is some demand going on.
No, absolutely. Yeah, like that's where we say that any experimentation tool, when you're understanding user behavior, has to have a combination of both, to understand the what, because what sort of gives you the direction, but the why. Once you take that direction, you start to unravel and peel layer after layer to understand the why, with heat maps, with session recordings, etc. One follow-up question to this would be, how do you prioritize? Now, there's a lot of data being thrown in. You have 10 different types of funnel data coming from GA4. You'll have heat maps, you'll have session recordings. How do you prioritize, or what framework do you use to actually get to what you want, or what meat you want out of this? How do you get to that?
So what I would say is I'm looking at the numbers on daily basis. So this is something like we have data person analyzing the data, making recommendations or not, but there is always data available.
Mhm.
For the interviews, surveys, etc., this is occasionally because, like as I said, like not everyone is actually willing to um, take the survey, especially if they don't have time. If they
Absolutely.
are Japanese and they are familiar with surveys, maybe they will be interested, especially if you give incentive to them. But if there is no incentive and there is a survey, like you don't want also send so many emails to your diner. So like
Correct.
email surveys or email marketing can be important, can be successful, but at the same time you can spam your
Hmm.
target audience. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
I would say I look at data all the time, every day, but for the quality of data, like something like interview, it's occasionally.
Hmm. Okay, okay, understood, understood. That makes sense. And in this whole, game, and this will be sort of a segue into another burning topic in today's day and age, which is AI. Is with your experience, you've been in the field of marketing for a decade plus now, and you were in the time when even these tools weren't there, and now you have AI, which is sort of mastering everything. How do you see AI change the marketing game? And how do you, Omnia, personally incorporate AI as of today into your workspace?
Well, I would say everyone must use AI right now. It
Hmm.
saves you a
Hmm.
lot of time,
Absolutely.
right? Like you can
Yeah, yeah.
automate so many things. You can get so many ideas and recommendations because human brains will not be working efficient every single day. You will not come up with so many ideas.
Absolutely.
If you do marketing, especially if you do marketing, you need a lot of ideas. Like your brain will not be working all the time, idea producing. So for ideas, I think AI is great. Some research can be great. If we think of the hospitality industry, so many people use AI right now. So I saw some restaurants, they have chatbots as customer service. So instead of
Hmm.
hiring so
Hmm.
many people to reply to your questions, especially in different language, like if I'm Japanese
Absolutely.
and someone speaks English, Chinese, Korean, trying to book my restaurant, and then they text me and they don't have. I don't want to hire full-time person for answering
Of
questions in
course.
different
In
languages. So
Korean,
I
and
will use
correct.
chatbot to translate. Unless it's something like a dead end and this chat cannot really help, then we can shift it to someone and say, "Hey, I'm Japanese, so I will be using translator, but I will do my best." So many restaurants are using this. Uber Eats actually is using it in Japan. So I'm using
Okay.
Uber Eats a lot. So sometimes there is issue with the order, so I want to text someone, they don't have someone who speaks English, they don't want to hire full-time English customer service, or maybe they are off during that time. So there is always this chat bot that is answering all my questions, and sometimes I don't
All your
even need to
question.
talk to human, right? Recommendations in the hospitality. So like if
Hmm.
I always like I have the same order when I go eat sushi because I love salmon. So if I
Of
order
course.
the same thing, then I get recommendation, or like it's always highlighting you booked this before, or this is, do you want to order the same order? So this kind of things will save a lot of time and make the conversions higher, because if I see in the top of the page that this is a recommendation of something that I always get, I'm always ordering the same thing, or similar stuff. Like if I want to book this thing but it's not available, then you show me similar options in the same category or same area, so it can be on different. We are actually working on this logic in my company right now. So
Lovely.
Japanese cuisine, for example, sushi, ramen, gyoza, the main
Hmm.
thing. But there are so
Hmm.
many other things that are not that famous. So sometimes people search for some certain keyword, like I want to eat teppanyaki, but maybe teppanyaki for me is grilled, something grilled.
Some
So
got
the
it. Yes.
yakiniku is similar, but it's different style, but
Wow.
similar, it's grilled. So we analyze, okay, this person is searching by this keyword because they are looking for something grilled. So we can
Grill.
recommend
Mm.
grilled stuff. So they can like, okay, these are other options. Or I want to go to this super popular restaurant because it's everyone's talking about it, but there are so many other restaurants that are
Other
quality
restaurants.
or even
Mm.
better, but they are not famous. So
Yes.
can be recommended based on the type of cooking, or the type of cuisine, or the location, etc., etc. So you can do all of this using AI. This is what I'm doing at my work right now.
Lovely. I mean, what you said towards the end, that actually, makes so much sense, in the sense that, especially when you're gathering a lot of international crowd, because, for example, you may have uh, dumplings in China, but in Japan it may mean something else. And what you said, teppanyaki, may mean something else outside, and grill is what they're looking for. That's actually a very fabulous approach to using AI, because I this is one thing where I feel that, if we include our intelligence along with what AI is capable of doing, which this is what you're doing, that okay, I'm transforming one search into another search basis what I know, and you already have that data with you. So that recommendation thing is very lovely to hear about. Ideas, research, yes. Your brain cannot operate, as you rightly said, on maximum capacity. So at times when you need your brain to be used for other things, please use AI for ideas and research. And the chatbots, absolutely. I remember my time in Indonesia. This was a year ago. And if you remember the Grab app, when you're talking with your riders,
Yeah.
they speak in Bahasa on the other side, type in Bahasa. I'm getting it on English on here. So I found that engagement really very seamless. I've never had any friction, and I'm sure AI had a major role to play in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I remember for AI is prediction of the peak time. So let's say in
Hmm.
Japan,
Hmm.
in Christmas, everyone, okay, so Christmas in outside Japan is all about family, but in Japan
Family.
is more romantic. So you will take your girlfriend,
Oh
your fiance to a
wow.
restaurant. So it's
Okay.
like cute romantic celebration. So there are many people want to go out for to go to restaurants during Christmas. So if you use AI to analyze, okay, people usually go a lot out during Christmas. So
Hmm.
like okay, before that time, how in advance they make the reservation? Is it like a month in
Hmm.
advance, 3 months in advance? Because making reservation in Japan is not like same day thing. People do it way in advance. So if you have AI to predict actually what are the peak season or peak period or like when the popular occasion for this kind of things that you're trying to sell or your service, this can help you a lot to prepare in advance.
Absolutely. Anything that brings in efficiency without manual intervention. I guess, I got that flavor from you in terms of recommendations, prediction of times. Lovely, lovely to, see that incorporated in your portfolio. My next question out here, and I'll go back to a previous thing that you mentioned, Omnia, was about the website practices and the fact that on the Western side it's more minimalist. On the Eastern side, a lot of the culture comes out in your user experience and user design. So, what are those few best practices or principles of user experience slash user design that work in Japan, but like you said, may not be popular in other countries?
Yeah. Okay, so in Japan, I would say the same. Like you have to write everything, all the information up front. So when I land
Hmm.
on your website or this certain landing page that you are directing me to, I need to see everything. I need to see the price. I need to see the any charges that will be included, like as I mentioned, the table charge, cancellation fee if I will cancel, if I have to pay any minimum fee, like everything need to be not in the confirmation page. You need to write it up front. One of the important things that you need to add is reviews. What people are saying about this. If you have
Hmm.
rates or reviews, Japanese would like to see this. Um, yeah, like another thing is the design. Design is very important here.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in Japan, they use like anime, cartoon style.
Ah, yes, of
Uh,
course.
it will work amazing in Japan, but for Western or outside Japan, this will be a little bit weird, especially if the brand is not related to something that can be anime or cartoon. But in Japan, you can always find a way to make it in anime style, kawaii style, cute style. The fonts that you are using, the if you have some fields to fill, you need to like make it minimum. Like, you don't ask for so many questions. You just want to
Questions.
fill minimum information. Also, how you will handle their information. Like if I put my payment information, how you will handle it. So privacy policy, like if they want to look at, this is something very important. I think beside that is the payment. So in Japan, they don't just use other credit cards. They have their own payment options. So they have pay and they have line pay.
Pay. Yeah,
So you
line pay. Yeah.
have, like, if you have a service that you have to pay in advance or in your store, you need to have pay and line pay, because everyone will have, beside cash, they must have pay and line pay or
Pay.
both of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, what you said about having all the information up front. I remember seeing a lot of uh, pages that I visit across Japanese websites because, for work purposes, and I see what you're saying reflect a lot. Every information needs to be upfront. The lead capturing mechanism needs to be minimal, and yet the design is very appealing to the end audience. You mentioned about anime and cartoon. While Japan is popular in anime and cartoon, how does the Western audience receive this when they land up to a website in Japan and when they come across this user experience? How do you think that is received?
So I would say not all companies, but most of companies, if this page is in English, the design will be completely different, or non-Japanese will be completely different. So you have to, or more than
Okay.
two versions of the same website. So when I use any website in Japanese, it looks different than the English one. And sometimes even they remove some of the information and make it less for non-Japanese audience. So unless you come here and see everything in Japan, I think they don't use a lot of anime or the Japanese style targeting Western. They change the design based on the target audience.
Based on the target audience. Lovely. And I'm sure experimentation again has a major role to play in how, how is your audience perceiving two versions of the website and what is the response you're getting. So lovely to hear on that. And since again, talking on experimentation, Japan, and all these topics, conversion rate optimization or CRO maturity, how much do you think that's prevalent across the Japanese organizations? And is it more used as a way to just short term conversions? Or do you see that as part of a company's long term strategy as well?
Well, unfortunately, in Japan, experimentation is not very popular, I would say.
Okay. Okay.
So if something is working, why would I try something new?
Why
Why
would I
would
try?
try something else? So if they are constant in things that if you do something in a certain way, why would you try something different? So I would say some big brands will do experimentation occasionally, but most of brands in Japan, they do it in a very narrow way, like can be very short term
Mhm.
plan or one campaign experiment. But they are always very worried. Like if you come up with new idea or like tell them like, hey, let's try this new thing, unless they see other brands in Japan did it before, they wouldn't feel very confident. So I think
Hmm.
this is a culture thing. So in Japan, you
Okay.
don't do something unless you see other people done it before. You will not be the first person doing it. So it's reflecting actually on the business side. So most of companies, if this is working, I will not try different things. I would love to see a lot of experimentations in Japan. Maybe things will change. We never know, because, like, as I mentioned, when I moved to Japan, marketing was completely different than now. So
I'm sure.
I hope in the future people will do a lot of experimentation.
No, absolutely. I was speaking with one of my partners as well. They happen to say the same thing, that because a lot of these businesses are legacy businesses in Japan, they've been handed down generations, and they have a very fixed way of working. And hence, like, I did not know this, that, but what you said about if a thing is working, why change it? That can be a very, old school way of doing things. But of course, I'm sure. But do you see this trend changing? Like, for example, with your own company as well, or many other companies, do you see this trend changing? And if I have to ask you, for anyone who is newly entering the market, or trying to make its mark in the Japanese market, what advice would you give them in this field?
Okay, so I would say if you are entering Japan or Japanese market, localization is not just translating your website to Japanese, because you can have perfect Japanese, but no one cares about it. So you need to
Mhm.
like see the style, the design that will work in Japan. Look at competitors. Like if you, I'm sure most of the brands now have similar brands that exist in Japan or similar service that
Absolutely.
exists in Japan. So look at them, see what they are doing, what kind of what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and look at your audience, what kind of things and market trends they like. So like so many young Japanese use TikTok. So you can look at TikTok, what they will do. If your brand will be good fit for like this kind of social media. So I would say do a lot of research, look into the customer behavior, not just translating your website or service. Also building trust because Japanese love to hear positive feedback about your service. So if there is a brand that I never heard about before, then I ask or do research and I find nothing in Japanese, I will not be, like as I mentioned before, they don't want to be the first one to try. They don't want to take this risk.
Correct. The stress.
So
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at your brand visibility and your brand credibility online in Japanese. So like try to make people talk about your brand, do maybe a little bit of advertising, maybe offer your service for free just to like get people to give some feedback or write about you. Then you will get more customers, more trust. Yeah, I mentioned this before, the payment options, like
Payment options.
yeah,
Yes.
pay, line pay, etc.
Got it, got it. No, I was gonna ask you about localization as well because when an international brand or any brand moves into the Japanese market, of course, the first thing that strikes them is, hey, I need to be in the local language. But like you said, language is not, or localization is not just about translation. You actually need to localize yourself to the market. And as you mentioned, design, style, audience, mediums of interaction, building that trust, offering services for free, integrating the local payment options and not just your global visas and masters. That really makes a difference in the Japanese market.
Yeah, on the top of that as well, having Japanese customer service would be great because if you have
Hmm.
Japanese client or audience and they stuck somewhere, they want some help. If they find you cannot really communicate in their language,
Communicate.
yeah, this will have really bad image in Japan.
No, no, absolutely. Having local feet, I would say feet on the ground for any business, I feel that, especially in the Far East Asian markets, more than in other markets, really, really make a lot of difference. And in while you're speaking about all of this, I understand for businesses, privacy and compliance becomes very important. And I understand, for Japan, that's equally important as well. So when you are conducting user research or trying to understand audience or conducting experiments on them, what are the certain privacy laws or compliance standards that you must follow while operating in Japan?
So in Japan, they must have get the user consent. So when you put
Okay.
any information, personal information or payment information, they must have everything written, like how they will handle this kind of information. Something similar to GDPR, but Japanese,
Hmm.
the Japanese version of it.
Got
Also,
it.
the cookies and tracking, like how they will handle or track your data, how they will show recommendations based on the data they store. They have to have everything written, and you must check this consent before you submit your information. Another thing is if there is any leak or anything goes wrong with data, Japan will make official apology. So they will go
Oh,
to media,
wow.
the press, even on TV. Like you will have something big to apologize for, even something really small related to data, because this will affect their image, they call it their image, their reputation in the market. So yeah, like they take data very seriously in Japan.
But is there anything specific, like a GDPR is a whole set of rules? Is there any standard as such with Japan? Like in India also, we have something called the DPDP Act right now. So is there something specific that they have to follow, or it's more like a understood set of practices?
They have a certain thing called the APPI.
APPI. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Japanese standard for data, handling data. When Japanese deal with a new, let's say, partner or new client, they will do background check, like they see if you're criminal or
Hmm.
not. This is something really big in Japan. So
Mm-hmm.
Japanese don't really like mafia or criminals, and they care about it. It's really big thing here. So if you are entering Japan or going to have any partnerships with any Japanese company, especially if it's a big one, they will have a criminal background check.
Oh, wow. Lovely. Lovely to hear that. And APPI, I wasn't aware of this. Thank you so much for sharing this with our audience, Umnia. And Umnia, the last question is a much more broader question to you is what we hear is that the Japanese hospitality industry is expected to surpass about $26 billion dollars by 2030. Where do you think experimentation can really help organizations gain a competitive edge and build their business stronger in this growth journey?
Well, I would say the most important thing is personalization. So people want to feel special. If they don't make them feel special, they will just go to another competitor. They will never come back. So you have to make them feel special. You have to understand their needs, what's their behavior. As I mentioned before, like how they spend, what kind of things they really like, if they have allergies, this kind of like data that you have, you can use it to create some personalized experience. You can also like do something special for them. I think this is not a big thing in Japan, but let's say someone who really wants to take a VIP sushi class by this
Mhm,
famous chef in Japan. So if you are doing if you want to do experiment with something like this, because there is kind of demand, you saw some demand, some searching for this keyword that you don't have, maybe
mhm,
creating something personalized will make you feel you will make them feel special, will make them feel like, okay, you are offering something that I can't find somewhere else, so I will come back because I really like it. Another thing I would say is the booking process. So like if your process is really complicated, people will just leave.
complicated.
Yeah, people will
Mhm,
just leave. If the booking process is not translated, because Japanese hospitality is not just for Japanese local. As I mentioned, government is really putting a lot of effort to attract more tourists. So
that's
if you
lovely.
are attracting these tourists in their languages, and when they land on your booking form, it's in Japanese, so they will just leave. Like if everything is like the landing page is in English, but then when you click on book this or make a reservation, it will transfer you to the Japanese website. So unless you have this like plug-in translator, you cannot really see, and you will put your payment information. So if it's not well translated, you will not trust this. You will just leave. So this is something I think we need to keep an eye on. Also loyalty, like some kind of
Mhm.
rewards, discounts, perks, etc.
That's great to hear. I mean, I've heard loyalty, and I understand your organization also is in that loyalty space. Apart from also the CRM part of things and the booking things, loyalty management platforms have definitely become very important because, like you said, repeat customers, lifetime value, those are very important aspects. And loyalty programs are a very key part to keep them, in your ecosystem. And glad to hear that Japan also follows the same path, personalization, efficient booking process, and great to hear that government is also taking equal efforts. So that, of course, you have to then align yourself with it and not let get lost behind in that race.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. That's it from the question answer round, Umnia. Before I said I have a surprise round for you, but before we move on to that round, this is a question that I sort of asked myself as well, and a lot of people that I meet is what is one advice that you would give to your younger self? I mean, you can take your time because I usually it takes me 2 minutes to think about this, but what is that one advice that you would give to your younger self?
um what I would say, actually, there's something I was always doing wrong, and I wish I didn't do it when I was younger, especially in my career. Is I thought that I knew everything about some certain thing. So let's say
Mhm.
I learned something, then I thought, okay, I know it. I'm like perfect at it. I can just do it on
Mhm,
my own. But things change. Things change on daily basis, not
mhm,
just like
mhm,
on monthly basis or yearly basis. So like keep updating yourself, keep learning, keep searching, keep following what other people doing. Maybe it's not happening yet in your country, but there are other things people are advanced on in other countries. I'm based in Japan now, so Japan is not super advanced in marketing, but if I look
Mhm.
at the US market or Euro market, then I will see there are so many things I can learn from. So when I was younger, I was not doing that. I was not really okay. I learned one thing, I can just like keep doing it. So yeah, like keep checking what's going on, update yourself, learn, keep learning is the most important advice I would give to myself.
No, I can thank you so much for sharing that with our audience, because that blind spot can be very hard, to not miss, and you can get lost in that. And so if you keep that mind open that, okay, hey, this is not only it, there's a whole world out there. And that would be beautiful. I mean, uh, would love to see in the future how that plays out, because I believe that, you can actually go back to your younger self and say these things, and then it has a different way of manifesting itself when you are in your day-to-day life as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be beautiful, Suzy. Thank you so much for sharing that, Umnia.
Yeah,
And as I
thank
mentioned, I have an exciting round for you. So this is a rapid fire round. So
you.
in
Okay.
this rapid fire round, I have about 8 questions that I'm going to ask you. Try as much as less that you can think about it. Of course, 1 or 2 questions may ponder thinking, but try to just give the first thing or the second thing that pops up in your mind.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Perfect. So, question number one, if you were starting a career in CRO today, what is the one thing that Umnia would do differently?
One thing I will do differently. Uh, this is really difficult question.
Guess I broke the
Uh,
rapid fire.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Absolutely, that's completely okay.
Thinking of one thing will be like a little bit difficult. What I would say is convincing people to do more experiment,
Mm,
because like I want to experiment with so many things, but convincing people is so difficult. Getting everyone on the same page and convincing them what will be the results, because for me, experimentation not about success, can be like a failed
of course.
experiment, but I will learn from it. But others convincing others with this is really difficult. So yeah, I would say this.
So,
I will
convincing
try to
people,
do
basically
what
building that community and convincing more and more people to get into it.
yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Sounds good. Second question. Any blog or newsletter or website that a CRO professional should follow, something that you have been reading up?
I have been following this person from Netherlands. His name is Robin. I think you interviewed him or like you had a
Okay.
blog about him.
Okay.
So yeah, I would recommend following or subscribe to his newsletter.
Absolutely. The audience will have the link on the channel as well. We will find that and post it for you. The next question, this shouldn't take time. 3 books that you would recommend our listeners.
Okay, the 4 hours work week.
Wow. Okay.
Uh, yeah, this is on the top of my list. Others, what I would, to be honest, I'm not into reading right now,
Okay.
but
Okay.
like I really love videos, so like
Okay.
I can recommend some channels, but more than books.
Absolutely. Why don't you recommend a channel for us?
Okay, so well, if there is a book called the $1 Million Offer, so I'm
Okay.
following the offer
Okay.
on YouTube,
Got it.
because it's just reading the book is just one time for me. It's just I read the book, but
Uh-huh.
the offer, if they are interactive, they have channel online. I really want to see more like how they actually implement this book in their daily life. So
In their
his name
daily
is
life.
Alex. So if you can follow his YouTube channel, he actually talks to people in real life and analyze their business and give recommendations. So this is more helpful for me than just reading the book. Book is important, but I want to see some real life examples.
Of course, makes absolute sense. And 4 hours work week, very surprisingly, it is on the shelf of my, of one of my ex-partners. I remember her reading this book. It's a white color book with something written in blue, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is.
Yes,
He
I
has
know.
two books. He has two books.
Okay.
$1 Million Offer and $1 Million something else. I don't remember.
Okay.
But
Okay.
his YouTube channel is really informative.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Next question. What is your go-to travel destination in Japan?
In Japan, I love Tohoku region. So it's a northern Japan. So it's not one certain city or
Okay.
place, but I
Okay.
love to go to the north.
Is Hokkaido somewhere in Tokyo?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, because on my list, Hokkaido is like, even before Tokyo and Kyoto, I have Hokkaido on my list.
Yeah, Hokkaido is so famous.
Oh, yeah, especially I have seen the snowy pictures, and there are very beautiful pictures of snow. And, there's some very good hospitality segments also to cater to that experience, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it is. Also, I would recommend Aomori. It's
Okay.
a little, yeah, it's in the north before Hokkaido. You can just have one stop before you go to Hokkaido or like on the way to Tokyo. It is
L-
amazing.
Lovely, lovely. I'm anyways gonna hit you up on in your LinkedIn too whenever I come down to Japan to ask for suggestions for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question, yeah. One thing that you feel AI will replace in the next 3 to 5 years.
I'm sorry to say that, but customer service.
Yeah, you've already given the answer, chatbots and everything. It's already happening, but yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I hear that when you say sorry to say that because that forms a large portion of how
Mhm.
of business and salaries and money flowing in the world. And of
Yeah,
course, it would be really disheartening to see it, but again, it is what it is, unfortunately. But
yeah.
lovely to hear customer service, of course. Next question. If not a marketing or an experimentation specialist, what is the other profession that you would have chosen? Don't give me in the corporate space. Give me as crazy an answer as you want.
I love cooking. I love food.
Oh
So
wow,
I in
lovely.
a cafe somewhere in a small city in Japan.
Lovely. I guess when my idea also, so for me it's the same thing. I love cooking. I've been experimenting with a lot of fermentation these days, and my idea is again cafe, a space to build
Yeah.
something. Lovely to hear that you have the same idea, Umnia.
Yeah, this is my retirement plan. Just go somewhere far in Japan, open a cafe, connect to locals.
Glad that you're thinking of retirement in Japan only. I hope once I turn up there and I visit multiple times, I think so I'll also have a similar intent to do so with Japan. The last question for you would be, what is the one dream or goal that you want to achieve in the next 3 years? I mean, I know your goal in the next 7 years, 8 years, but just immediately in the next 2 to 3 years, what is that one dream or goal that you would want to achieve?
Well, I don't have a very far dream, but I really want to help Japanese businesses to connect with foreigners
Mm-hmm,
because there is always expectations like
mm-hmm.
foreigners or Westerns are expecting something, and Japanese are really worried to they feel pressure because
Pressure.
they want to meet the expectation from foreigners. So like talking to them, understanding them, try to connect them with foreigners, break this language barrier or like the fear of not meeting expectations. I really love when I bring a friend to a local restaurant and explain the menus and talk to the chef and say like this friend doesn't like this or likes this because menu in Japan is very standard, very fixed.
Mm-hmm,
So they are not very flexible to change things. But
mm-hmm.
I think once you know the language and talk to them slowly, explain, they're really nice and they are happy to adjust to your whatever you like. So I feel like living here in Japan, I got so many support from local Japanese. So I want to give back by helping them to overcome this barrier between foreigners and Japanese. So this is something I really want to do. I'm trying my best to do in a very small, narrow, um, yeah, perspective. But I hope maybe in 2, 3 years I will be able to do it in a bigger way.
No, I sincerely wish you the best in that, Omnia. That's a very beautiful thing to give back from a place that has given you so much. To be very honest, not many people have that approach. I remember this friend of mine. She used this term called "pay it forward,"
Mm.
which is like whatever the place or that person has given you, it's almost a responsibility as a human to put it forward. And with Japanese, especially because there can be this huge culture divide, and if you are able to do that, it would be a very beautiful thing, because cultures can really get lost in translation, in communication. And if there is someone
Yeah,
who understands both the sides, it would be a beautiful thing. Umnia.
yeah, it is beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Umnia. You have been a lovely, lovely guest. And usually my folks have told me that, Vishesh, try not to go beyond 45 minutes. People have less attention span. I was like, I am sure this flow will really appeal with our audience. Anything else that
Okay.
you would like to share, Umnia, before we close this?
Well, thank you so much. It was really nice talking to you and sharing about Japanese hospitality. I know so many people are planning to come to Japan because I'm looking at the numbers.
Of course.
But yeah, like try to like if you're coming to Japan and you don't know the language and you have your own expectations, try to translate these expectations to Japanese in a nice and easy way for them to understand, like using a translator app, or like just try to be nice. And sometimes you don't really be flexible or want to be okay with what you ask for, because they are worried not to meet your expectation, not because they don't want to make you happy. They're just worried if they do something differently it will go wrong. So I just have an advice for anyone traveling or coming to Japan, is just to be nice and try to be like use simple language to communicate with the locals. And yeah, like I hope everyone can come to Japan at some point.
Absolutely. So you've heard it, audience. Whenever you end up in Japan, definitely table check for your reservations. You have a beautiful platform ahead of you, and being mindful of the culture, and respecting the local culture, and ensuring that what you want to communicate gets communicated beautifully, because Japanese can be a little hard on themselves. Let's make it a little easy for them whenever they're inviting us into their country.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really
Thank you
had
so much.
fun having this
Absolutely.
conversation with you. If you are
Absolutely,
coming to
Dylan.
Japan anytime soon, just message me.
I think so. More and more conversations of Japan I have. I think so. Somewhere it'll get manifested that I will turn up in Japan. But thank you so much, Umnia, for your time. And look forward to more such experiences being created by you and the Table Check team.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank you.
you. Have a nice day.